Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, welcome back. I am here with a book video. What book video, you may be asking? And that is a good question. The answer is January, February book wrap up. I didn't film a book wrap up in January, and I didn't film one in February. I didn't think I was gonna read that much, honestly, but I kind of low-key read a lot. Yep, I did read. I think I read a lot for my standards and for like being a full-time student and working and everything. I low-key read a lot of books, but some books, you know, were better than others. Some books were like for quick stimulation and for nothing really, just to have some steam in my life. I don't know. So we're here to talk about it. Of course I have my phone. If I'm looking down a lot, that's because my notes are on my phone. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with January, of course. And January was filled with surprises that I was not expecting to see. I was not expecting to read the book series that I did read. So let's get into it. First book I read was Caught Up by Liz Tomford, and it's in the Windy City series. It's the third book. So this one, third one, was everybody's favorite. Everyone was raving about it. Everyone on BookTube, Book Talk, talking about this book. They love this book. They love it so much. It was their favorite book, one of their favorite books in the series. So I was like, okay, let's see the hype. But I read the summary and I was like, I'm not really into that. So I was like, I don't know how much I'm gonna like this book. Let me tell you my ratings and then spice level, and then I'll talk about my feelings about the book. Okay, so rating is 3 out of 5 stars. Spice is 2.5 out of 5. The summary is basically, it's a single dad. He's a baseball player and he needs a nanny for his kid, his child, and you know, the usual that happens in stories like this. He shouldn't like her, blah blah blah. She's not meant to stay there for a long time. She is actually his coach's daughter, and she's just like in between stints at the moment. So it's that whole trope, which I'm personally not that into. A lot of people did love that trope, like single dad nanny trope. I'm not into that much. I did like the characters though, like individually. Like, I mean, I like them together too, but it's just like I wasn't really fully into the plot because I'm not really into that. Like, oh, stay, blah blah blah, be with me, blah blah blah. We're a family. Like, I don't know. I'm not really into that. So that's why I said 3 out of 5, because it was a pretty good read, and if you're like into that, you should read it. Next up, I wanted some smut. I read God of Fury by Rena Kent, and it's in a series, interconnected series. I honestly really don't know what it's about. I did rate it a 2.5 out of 5 and a 4 out of 5 steam. So obviously the reason I read it was for the steam, because I saw a TikTok. Was it a TikTok or was it from my like Facebook pages? Yeah, the book was all right. It was like back and forth. It is a male LGBTQ plus book. It was between two guys. It was pretty decent. It was pretty mid, honestly. If you want steam, if you want smut, the characters, I mean, we're all right. Mafia, crime, family, like dangerous. Enemies, kind of enemies to lovers. A little bit. Next, I'm kind of going through this fast because I don't have other words to say, and I don't want to waste your time with coming up with fluff words that I don't even know are coming out of my mouth. And that's what I was doing with all the other videos of like my book wrap-ups, because like sometimes these books, like I'm not reading it for any purpose, you know? Like I read books to like feel something a little bit, or like have some emotional stimulation, or just for plain smut. So some of these books are for that reason, and that was one of them. Okay, next book. Ooh, I did like this a decent amount. It's called Cinderella is Faking It by Dylan Dyer. I'm not good at pronouncing names. I'm so sorry. I rated it a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't have a steam level, and I don't remember the steam level. I really like this story. Basically, the female main character, FMC, meets this girl in the bathroom at a job interview in like a hotel maybe, or like some convention area. So she meets a girl in the bathroom, and this girl's like freaking out, having a panic attack, and the female main character was like, are you okay? And then the girl's like, no, not really, and like starts like talking about, like not really talking about, but like kind of telling her like why she's like crying. And then she's like, wait, you could be me, we could switch places. And so she switches places. She meets this guy. The guy's the MMC. They kind of hit it off a little bit, but she leaves. He doesn't get her number, but he has a bracelet of hers that she dropped. And so he messages the girl's team because the girl, she finds out that the girl she met in the bathroom that she's pretending to be is someone rich and famous. And this like gala thing is like a networking gala charity event that she goes to show face. Nobody knew that she was impersonating that girl because that girl that she met in the bathroom hasn't been out in public in forever. So that's why people just think that's her. And then MMC reaches out to that girl's team, and then that girl talks to the FMC and is like, please just pretend to be me, like it doesn't blah blah blah. So they basically start hanging out, and then lots of other things intertwine. Some politics, kind of, a little bit. I really like the Cinderella like retelling of it all. I really like that book. And then so again, I wanted some steam. The next book I read was God of Malice by Rena Kent, and it's still in that same series of the God of Fury. Again, I wasn't really, into it like that. I honestly didn't really know what was happening. I did, but like not enough to like tell it because I didn't care. So I rated it at a 2 out of 5 stars and a 3.5 out of 5 steam. That's a little bit lower for what I wanted, I guess. So what was this book about? So this is the first book of the series, so like I kind of skip around because you could kind of read these books as a standalone, but they do interconnect, but it kind of explains what happens because all these books in this series, it's called Legacy of Gods, all are kind of happening in the same timeline. This one was like a little bit darker. This book has a lot of trigger warnings, so read that before you get into it. So basically the MMC meets the FMC, and the FMC wanted to unalive herself. And the MMC kind of saves her, but in his own way, it's a little bit problematic. They do the dirty deed. I didn't really like it that much. That's why I said 2 out of 5. So next one is called The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer. This one I thought I was gonna really like, but I think it was alright. It was decent because I did rate it a 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't my favorite hockey romance. It is a hockey romance. It's a fake dating trope. Okay, so basically, the FMC, this girly pop, does not date players. Hockey players, maybe athletes. I think more so like hockey players because her ex just so happens to be a hockey player. The ex somehow manages to transfer teams that she works for because she's like a physical therapist for the hockey team. So she sees her exes coming back and she's like, oh no, because that guy was terrible to her. So she's like, oh my gosh. Well, not really she. It's more so, I think it's more the MMC because the MMC is a player on the team, on the hockey team that she works for, and kind of has had a thing for her. Tries to help her out, and then they suggest fake dating to get back at the ex because they are rivals. The ex-boyfriend and that hockey player, the MMC, are rivals. So she's like, oh, I'm just gonna pretend to date him because that's my ex-boyfriend's rival and he'll be jealous and leave me alone because he's a creep and annoying. I read that. And then an unexpected series that I was reading in between all of this, I'm pretty sure that's why I like rated The Fake Out like mid, is because while I was commuting to school, I was getting tired of listening to music. So I started listening to the Percy Jackson series as an audiobook, but from YouTube. So kind of like a bootleg. The video I found of the audiobook for that series is like really good, and I like love his videos. I'm gonna insert it obviously on screen. Oh my gosh, he narrated it so good. The pacing was like so good that I like really like enjoyed the story. And then the story itself, like I feel like did I not say what book it is? I don't remember. The book I'm talking about is The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I rated that a 5 out of 5. I love that book. I like don't even remember reading it as a kid because I think I read it when the movie came out, and so when I was reading the book when I was a kid, I was imagining the movie in my head, so it wasn't like really anything. So then I'm just like always thinking of the movie. I wasn't imagining my own thoughts, and because I haven't like watched the movie in so long, I kind of forget the premise. I only know who was in it. I feel like I had like a clean slate with the imagery. It was such an easy read, obviously, because it is a children's book. Do you call that a young adult teen book? I don't know. Obviously, it's like a kid's book, and I really enjoyed that series. And I feel like even though like they were younger, like because they are young, Percy and all of the gang, they start off as 12-year-olds. It was like even sadder, like the premise of the book and the storyline of I don't know, just reading it as an older person, as an adult, it really made me think about kind of like my childhood, and I feel like it healed my inner child in a way because I was reading the book, or when I was listening to the book on my like commutes to school and everything, it was like I was really like feeling it, because I was sometimes tearing up because it's just so sad, like thinking that they're 12 years old and they're dealing with like a neglect of a parent, or maybe two parents with some of the other demigod kids, and just like not feeling wanted but wanting to prove themselves so that like maybe they could get claimed by their godly parent, or they'll just be proud of them and like acknowledge them and reach out to them, but that never really happens. And so these kids are like trying to prove themselves, and it was, I don't know, that kind of got to me because Loki related to that. But that's why I was like obsessed with the series. I like was so obsessed with it. I was so into the story. I like read the book so fast, or listened to the book so fast, because obviously I just said like the narrator was so good at telling the story and like doing like the voices. So I really loved the book. The next book I read, The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. Again, love the story, love the characters, love the development. Like each book is like each year that Percy goes through, and like each summer. So he starts the book at 12 during the Lightning Thief, and then at Sea of Monsters he's 13, and you know, kind of getting a little bit of the hang of things. But also the thing in the previous book, The Lightning Thief, it's crazy how they just get sent on quests and they're just like told or expected to defend themselves and like fend for themselves. Like they don't have money, they have to constantly be in life or death situations, constantly fighting these monsters, and you don't even know if you're gonna come out alive. And like imagining that in real life, we're just like 12-year-olds going through that and just being tired and beaten down, and again like all of this for your parent, your godly parent that who's ignored you. That was like the theme kind of The Lightning Thief, book one, and then you know, carrying on with like all the characters. You know what Percy Jackson is about. If you have read the series like when you were younger, I definitely recommend reading it as an adult. It's just so good. And then if you don't have time, listen to the audio version, because the audio version is so good. So anyways, I read Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. Again, I did a 5 out of 5. Like this was even better. Not even better, honestly. It's like still the same level, but just like a little bit more in depth. More deadly missions, because they, you know, Sea of Monsters, they go out into the sea, and it's getting more into the prophecy that's talked about in book one. It's just like each book is like building up to the prophecy, which is crazy to think, you know. Next book I read, Titan's Curse, 4.5 out of 5. I did dox it a little bit because, I don't know, maybe I was like in a mood, because we are introduced to more characters and it was a little bit harder to keep up with the new characters, to see Percy, like the main character that you've been following the books in, kind of not be so main charactery. But I think that was a good plot device and good for the audience to just see that perspective of Percy not being like all that, you know, kind of. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not really gonna talk about the plot, because it basically carries out from the first book onto the rest. So that was all the books I read in January. 8 books I read in January. So yeah, let's get on to February's book wrap up. Of course, I read the 4th book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, which was The Battle of the Labyrinth, Rick Riordan, and again, even more intense and even more deadly. Like all the other quests have been scary in all the other books, but this one, of course, it's more scary because it's literally, we're on the cusp of the end of the prophecy that's been talked about, a war that's gonna happen. Yeah, it's just even crazier. Again, this doesn't really focus so much on Percy. It's not Percy's quest, it's someone else's. I don't know if it's spoiling if I say the name, but so I'm just not gonna say the name. Oh, it was so good. This whole series was so good. I love the series so much. It kind of ends on a cliffhanger, I think. So then you get into the last book, which is The Last Olympian, which I read by Rick Riordan again. Battle of the Labyrinth, I rated a 4 out of 5. And then for The Last Olympian, I rated a 5 out of 5. It was so good, so sad, kind of heartbreaking, like to see what happens with a specific character that you've seen time and time again. I don't know, it just kind of shows with this book specifically, like they're all children, or by the time The Last Olympian happens, Percy is 16 by now. He's literally a sophomore in high school, which he's so old. Like literally he was 12 years old in the first book, a middle schooler, you know, still trying to find himself, discover himself. And then you see, oh my god, you see I'm gonna get teared up. Oh my god, I'm watching him grow up, you know? My eyes are like watering. In The Last Olympian, you see, you know, Percy's development throughout it all and what he's gained, like the confidence he's gained in like strategy, fighting, and himself compared to the first book. In the first book, obviously because he's 12 years old, he like doesn't know what's going on. It was really nice to see that. And then the battle, like it was very battle heavy, obviously, because this is now the prophecies happening, being fulfilled, and to see see Percy's development and how he accepts what the prophecy is and like what the prophecy actually means, and it being fulfilled in some way is crazy. And also just like kind of seeing the gods in action. I don't know if that's spoiling it. Again, as I said, heartbreaking to see that these are children and that they're not actually the bad guys. They're not really the villains of the story. The villains are kind of like the gods. Yeah, overall, that series was so good. I did not expect to like start or even finish all of the series of the Percy Jackson and Olympian series this year. That's that for that series. The next book I read was The Demi-Files by Rick Riordan. Short stories you're supposed to read in between the Battle of the Labyrinth and The Last Olympian. I just rated a 3 out of 5. It was interesting. It was decent. It added this to the story a little bit. It's like kind of nice to see them in a not so serious quest or tone. So next, I was in a little bit of a book slump because the Percy Jackson series was just so good. I was literally obsessed with it. Couldn't stop thinking about it. And so the next book I read was called Fear Me, Love Me by Lilith Vincent. I rated it a 2 out of 5 stars. I was not really into it, again, because of the book slump. Read the trigger warnings. Basically, it's like a mafia guy. The MMC collects a debt from this family, which is the FMC female main character's family. Her dad had a gambling problem and owed money to the MMC. The MMC stole FMC's little brother, baby brother, and FMC comes to take her brother back. It's kind of told in like a flashback type of way. It was really weird that MMC becomes obsessed with her. Of course, they do in these types of these types of books, kind of like mafia, organized crime vibe. But it was like a short, quick read, I guess you could say. Okay, so we're not really gonna talk about some of these books, okay? Because some of them I just read for quick steam, not really good plot. So the next book I read was Birdie's Biker by Misty Walker, and I gave it a 1 star. So basically, the female main character's dad is a scientist, and he has something that could ruin the world. And it gets stolen from him, from like this other gang or mafia people, I don't know. And so he sends his daughter off to be with a biker gang. I guess the biker gang is known to be like beating people up, finding people, whatever, finding things, getting it back if you pay them like a good amount of money. So he sends his daughter to live with them because he thinks that's the safest option for her to do. I did not like this story because things happen within there, and yeah, I didn't really like the progression of their romance. They have a rocky relationship because she's a bad girl, or she doesn't listen to the rules, and then the leader, the president of the motorcycle gang is like, let me teach you the rules. Things like that. Next book I read was Claiming Juliet by C.L. Strickland. I gave it a 1 out of 5 stars, and it's the second book, but you could read it as a standalone. It's like a forbidden romance, age gap story. It was alright. Honestly, nothing really went on, I don't think, in this story. Next, I read The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata, because I heard this booktuber I watch, Heather, talk about it, and she was like, I love this book, blah blah blah. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot, because a lot of the books she likes, which are like steam, romance, spicy books, kind of, I like. So I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. This book took me forever because I read this book, I think I started this book, when did I start this book? I started this book February 5th and I ended it February 25th because I just was not into it. So while I was like reading this book, I read those other 2 books beforehand because I needed something in between, because this book was like going so slow. I wasn't into it. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. Like, I feel like near the end it did get better, obviously, because that's when the romance is kicking up, but like it took literally, I think, more than 50% of the way. Like 50% of the way through the book, that's when he kind of started being nicer, and that's when they started becoming friends. So then I was like, why did it take 50% of the way for him to kind of like be nice? Or like for them to kind of be friends, and they were barely even friends at that point. And then I think at 60%, that's when they started to become like actual friends. And I'm like, why are we like so far into the book and they're barely even like talking or barely even friends? Individually, I did like the characters. Like, I love the female main character. She was pretty slay. Some of the reasonings for her liking him, I don't know, I'm just like, Okay. So basically the summary is she works for him. He is a NFL star and she works for him. She's his personal assistant for like 2 years. She like did everything for him. She decides to finally quit because she's had enough. You know, she wants to move on with her life. He comes back to her like a week later, knocking at her door, asking for her back. And then I don't know if it's mentioned in the story, so I'm not even gonna say it. So he asks for her back and other things escalate where that they have to be near each other. I'm not really gonna say what because I feel like it might spoil it. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like a slow burn. So if you kind of like slow burns, go for it. I'm not really into slow burns. Like I'm kind of in there for like quick, you know, quick stimulation, quick steam, or quick romance, quick reads. You know, I'm not really into it like that. So next, if you've seen my Instagram, you would know. You would know what book wrecked me, killed me, broke my heart, actually made me feel like real heartache. Like I'm recovered now. Like literally, I needed a day to recover from this book. And the book I'm talking about is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I heard of this book from booktuber Sarah, Bestie Sarah. I heard it from her, and obviously then I heard it from Bestie Destiny because they talk about the book on the podcast and like because they're besties. She's read the book, she kind of talks about it. So I'm like, okay, what's the hype? I need to know, like this is their favorite book, you know, and I trust them. I shouldn't have trusted them. You know, I mean, sure, yes, it is a good book, obviously memorable if it killed me, but like the storyline? Okay, so let me tell you the summary of the book. I rated this book a 3 out of 5 stars. Steam, basically 0, okay? But that's not the point of the book, you know? I'm sorry, I knew that going in. I knew it was going to be a little bit heartbreaking, but not as heartbreaking as I thought it was gonna be. I didn't think my heart was gonna be broken throughout the whole thing. So I read this book in one sitting, one dang sitting at night, and I finished at 5 a.m., bawling my eyes out. Basically, I never stopped crying. And so I got a headache because of how much my head hurted from crying so much, dry heaving, crying. And then, yeah, I was wrecked. So basically the summary is, they are London's it couple. Magnolia Parks, the female main character, is London's it girl, socialite, fashionista. BJ Ballantyne, male main character, is London's bad boy. He's an Instagram model. He models for an agency. He's so good looking, blah, blah, blah. Every girl wants her, and then every guy wants Magnolia. Like, from the title, you'd think, Magnolia Parks, oh, that sounds like a sweet story. Oh my god. No, this story is not sweet. This story is, it's something else. So I said, they're London's it couple, right? But guess what? The kicker, they're not together. They used to be together, but they're not together anymore in this series. But they are always together. They still kind of act like they're a couple low-key. They hang out all the time. But guess what as well? She is dating other boys, other guys. She's dating other guys to get back at him for what happened in the past that we don't know about in the beginning. So I'm not gonna say. And he, BJ, is sleeping with other girls to get back at her for dating other guys. Make that make sense. It doesn't make sense. And I was mad about it because every little thing, you'd think, oh, okay, yeah, there's this back and forth. That's like how they set up the book. They're always together, but she's dating other guys while they're still hanging out and having this crazy intense chemistry, knowing each other, doing things for each other, just being there for each other, but just like not in the secure way. And they've known each other for a long time. They're basically kind of like childhood friends. They all, like the friend group, it's like a friend group thing. It's kind of like Gossip Girl, but just like it gets so frustrating. And this is literally the summary of the book. It's saying they're going back and forth, back and forth. You know, I wouldn't expect it to be back and forth the whole time, but it kind of low-key is. And there's other tropes that I don't like that's in this book that I feel like I should mention because it's prevalent in the book. And I wish I had known this because I was so mad about it because I don't like these tropes. So basically the trope is a love triangle. Is that a trope? I don't know, but I hate love triangles. And mentions of infidelity and cheating. Again, I hate that. You know, both of them are just both toxic to each other, but then it made me have an unhealthy relationship with them. It made me toxic reading the book and going back and forth with these emotions. It is a good book if you want to like feel something. Like, I think it's good. I did get a little bit confused with the flashbacks. There are some flashback scenes in between the scenes that I had a little bit of a hard time following. That might just be a me thing. And because I needed a little palate cleanser, we're not really going to talk about this because it is what it is, and it's in the title. The book is In Daddy's Custody by Kelly Dawson. Yep, I gave it a 1 star. Yep, it was super quick read though. I honestly was skipping forward because I just like, you know what? I don't need all this plot. The plot is unnecessary. I just need the steam. Make me feel a little bit better from being destroyed. That's so dramatic, but I literally felt like that. I literally needed a whole day to recover from Magnolia Parks. Anyways, that's the end of the video. That's all the books I read. I read a total of 9 books. So 9 plus 8, 17 books in total for January and February. I think this video is coming out before my reading vlog, which will have my reactions to reading Magnolia Parks. So that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Feel free to follow my socials, which are linked in the description box. But I have Instagram, which is It's Kelly David. I have TikTok, which is It's Kelly David. My YouTube channel, wait, you are on my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel then. Like the video. Comment down below if you read any of the books I read. So yeah, talk to you next time. Peace out. Bye. Ooh, yeah. Ooh.